Hi, my friends. This is Reverend Jill Carey from Unity of Wimberley. Thank you for joining me today as we always come together on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Central Time for some words of encouragement and inspiration and identification with each other. This week, we have experienced yet another mass shooting here in the United States, and I'm tagging on to the Tuesday Facebook Live presentation that my colleague Kit Holmes made about this. With everything that's happened in the last year, and then looking farther back at other events and activities that have occurred that have affected our lives in dramatic ways, it's easy for us to become discouraged with humanity, with laws and regulations in different parts of our country and in the world. And it's easy to see why we would become discouraged. The thing that unites us is that we are never us versus them. If one group of people is experiencing grief and loss, it's grief and loss for all of us. If one group of people is experiencing anger, then we are also part of that anger because we are one people. We are a human race. We're united by common drives, common goals, common aspirations. And so the first thing that we can do in the wake of something like the shooting this week in Boulder, Colorado, is, of course, to open our hearts with empathy and compassion and understanding for the victims, for their families, for the community there, and yes, even for the shooter. We know that, based on what we've seen so far, this man had a history of mental illness that looks a little bit like schizophrenia. This is not an excuse for his behavior. But rather than reacting to what has happened, which is our typical response, it's more important that we examine ourselves more deeply to look at how we can respond rather than react. A response is something that comes from a deeper place inside us. It comes from a purer motivation. It comes from a place of higher energy. And that higher energy is important for us to tap into because it is the cure, the panacea for our sense of discouragement. In this season of Lent, as we've been studying things about ourselves that pop up for us having a human experience, there is always something that replaces that more human feeling with something that's more connected to the divine and the eternal. This is where we always have to go. We always have to. Even when we don't want to, we at least have to be willing to let ourselves be healed, to let ourselves find something deeper than our current feeling. Because feelings are fleeting and feelings are temporary. You know this from times in your life when you've gone through a time of discouragement, a time of illness, a time of loss, a time of feeling lost. And we always work our way out of it eventually. We can do it a little more quickly if we're tapping into the divine source of hope. It's from there that we can take action if we are called to do so. So perhaps in this case, your action will be praying. Your action will be to hold on to the truth that grief is comforted by God, that people will move on even though their lives will be changed forever. We know this is true because we've gone through things that have changed our lives forever, and yet we hold on to hope. We do not let ourselves get caught in discouragement. From that place of hope, if you're called to social action, then work on that. Move in that. It's certainly true that we have confusing and sometimes controversial gun laws in this country. If you are so moved to work toward reform in that area, then do so. It's certainly true that we don't have enough resources and we still have a stigma to treat mental illness. And so if your calling is to work toward more readily available, more generously funded, and less stigmatized care for mental illness, then work in that direction. So that we're not just caught up in those surface emotions of anger and helplessness and discouragement. We continue to move on. We continue to work for that which is right. We continue to hold the higher truth. I am looking at a scripture from Isaiah 60, verse 1. It's part of our reading for this week in our Lent study. Arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. These are ancient words from Isaiah, but they're words that are still true. Arise and shine because you have a light that needs to be shared with the world. Events like the tragic one in Boulder this week call on us to shine our light into darkness amidst humanity. We're called to do that. So I invite you to take a deep look. I invite you to call upon hope that you've called upon in the past. Go a little deeper with it. Know that it is available to you. Know that it is what gets you out of bed in the mornings. And on the days you can't get out of bed, you'll get out of bed in a day or two. Call upon that hope. See what it pushes you toward. See if it continues to motivate you to lift up all of humanity, those that are wounded and those that do the wounding. For surely as one people, this is what we want for ourselves. We too want to be lifted up and healed. So, beloved, I know this is a serious topic today, but it's one that I offer you, again, with hope. Because if we don't have that, then where else are we? If this message would be helpful or comforting to someone that you know, please feel free to share this from my Facebook page. Again, I'm here every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central, and I'm happy to have you with me. It's a good connection for all of us to know that we're holding on to each other in difficult times. Beloved, I love you. I miss you. I appreciate your presence in my life. And I'll see you on the screens until we meet again in person. Bye.